Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 𝐓𝐡𝐚𝐧 podcast. I'm Mert Damlapinar, and joining us today, none other than Celia Van Wickel, currently heading the digital commerce at Russell Stover, a part of Lynch Friendly family. Hello, Celia.
Hello, Mert. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm super excited to have you with us today. Welcome to the 𝐓𝐡𝐚𝐧 podcast.
Thank you. I'm really privileged to be here, especially as you've been launching this podcast and to be some of your first members to join you here.
I appreciate it. That's why I reached out to you in one of those several launch episodes, because I'm bringing all the heavy guns within our network. So I count on you and your insights on this show. Thank you very much. Now, I know you for quite some time now, even from your days at the Coke. The first time we started talking then, and then I got the privilege of collaborating with you at some projects and initiatives at Mars. But I can tell those stories all day. I want you to speak about it in your own words. Can you share a brief intro about yourself, your role and the current team and excited projects you'll be working on, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, you and I go way back. I think we'll discuss that a little bit later. However, yes, I've had the privilege of working for some major brands and retailers within my career. As you noted, I'm currently and had just recently joined Russell Stover Chocolates, leading their digital commerce team. It's really been a great opportunity for me and how my career has evolved from more of a measurement side to now an activation side of the business. So in my role at Russell Stover today, I cover and lead Amazon business. So my most recent role was leading global omnichannel analytics at Mars, where I really focus on the advanced analytics side to bring forward digital shelf measurement, retail media, on-site activation measurement, and Amazon measurement within the organization from a global standpoint. And then I've also been a retail thought leader, connected to our retail IQ in the e-commerce space. And then really got my passion for e-commerce, where I worked for Coca-Cola, as you noted, really leading their insights. And that was really the early days of e-commerce for CPG industry, where you really were trying to prove the value to both retailers and internally on what we do from a digital perspective. And so I really got to be at the forefront at Coca-Cola, and that really drove my passion and focus on e-commerce.
It's interesting because you touched upon all the areas I've been researching. I've been sharing my thoughts and insights last couple of years: retail media, digital commerce, digital shelf. And of course, you're the expert of all, in addition to the data analytics part of it, because without measurement, nothing makes any sense. And we're going to talk a lot about this, but on a trivial angle, I want to mention that we're launching 𝐓𝐡𝐚𝐧 at the moment right now, and thanks for supporting us. On a trivial note, do you remember the first post you liked or agreed or resonated with you from 𝐓𝐡𝐚𝐧 years back? What was it about?
Yeah, so you and I go way back. So I think to your beginning of, you still were branding at 𝐓𝐡𝐚𝐧, but I think you were posting some things and writing some articles. I tried to endlessly scroll to find what I liked first, because I also engage a lot on LinkedIn. Was how we connected. But I did find that from some of your articles, one of the first things I actually liked was an article from December 2021. So it was called, so it went a couple of years ago when I think you're starting to build up your brand. And the article was called, "Are we agile enough? How can we, CPGs, react more quickly to consumer demand?" I think that's very apt to the roles I had taken at Mars in omnichannel analytics. Really, it was about how machine learning, data, and analytics should empower more agile decisions at CPGs. And so it's really something I have seen actually come to the forefront in the industry, because I was measuring, but you can measure things all you like. You can put the fanciest models on something, but you have to have the business functions engaged and using those outputs of those models to really get the action you needed out of those solutions. So the data is there, but it is that integration, the reaction to move on that data that's really important. But it was another article that actually saved on my background. It was from early 2022. And that article was about blockchain and Web 3.0. So what I liked about it was actually during the height of metaverse. Yeah. And everyone was talking about metaverse, but everyone was misconstruing metaverse with gaming. And I think it really hurt especially what Web 3.0 can really become, and it actually is still happening today. And so I really see that we're seeing this apps change, not just about gaming, but how we're looking at digital identification and loyalty use cases, and shifting online shopping in particular to personalized fully integrated shopping experiences. So I see social really being integrated to change what I like to call horizontal shopping into more integrated shopping, and how AI trends we're seeing is being part of that evolution. So we're seeing some of the aggregation of reviews, search results, really being part of that evolution. These are all powered by what the components are of blockchain and Web 3.0. And I don't think people realize it because the hype beyond it has subsided.
It is. It is subsided indeed. And I remember Metaverse was promoted as the next big thing, and all our lives will be changed the next week or so. Facebook changing name to Meta, everything. But yeah, this hype and a little bit of die down lately. I still believe that blockchain, on the other hand, has been adopted with larger and older, bigger companies, and there's a lot of real-time, real-life use cases happening, from JP Morgan to shipping giants to marketing agents to CPG. That's why we're going to be posting and sharing a lot of insights about blockchain applications in the CPG world. And I'm going to definitely knock your door to get some insights for real use cases stuff. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. 2021 e-commerce. I remember I was using e-commerce as a moniker for my newsletter. And in the course of 3 years, it became a really good, engaging community. And now we're exchanging at even faster rate all these insights. And thank you very much for being part of the community. I appreciate it.
I get jealous because your name is perfect for e-commerce and mine doesn't flow very well. So
yeah, because the pronunciation makes it perfect. It rhymes perfectly. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you very much for indulging myself at the new launch of brand name we have. Now back to the real world, back to the real business. In terms of digital commerce, you've been in this game, and this is not our first rodeo, and we worked in multiple global giants. How has this digital commerce acceleration impacted your roles in different companies, and how are you going to translate it, implement it to your current strategy and operations at Russell Stover?
Yeah, I've had this luxury of going from really big brands to smaller brands in terms of my engagement. And so I've seen the evolution in every case, but I see that whether it's a big brand or a small brand, the understanding to teach the organization, connect the organization hasn't changed over time. So I've seen 6 years ago, Coca-Cola, we were connecting. We actually have started at Russell Stover some digital learning programs. And I'll talk a little bit more about what we're doing at Russell Stover. But that is something that we had to do more than 6 years ago at Coca-Cola. I remember writing e-commerce glossary and teaching our category management team about the fundamentals of e-commerce. However, even when I was at Mars last year, right, working with the global team, we were also educating globally digital commerce and having people do digital learning. Well, Russell Stover this year, we're also doing the same thing and teaching the organization and doing digital learning and having people get certified in digital acumen. So this is something that doesn't go away, big or small, right? Some cases I have more data, and some cases I've had less data to play with in each of the organizations. But in my company today at Russell Stover, we really have gone to building the key fundamentals. So we have digital shelf measurement. We all have search and content processes that we're trying to move and shift into the next generation. So we're really going from where we have gone to a fundamentals, and really now I'm coming on board to build and continue the maturity from the fundamentals of digital shelf to really growing a sizable Amazon business. And we're really doing this in interesting and connected ways, right? I really believe in unifying the organization and finding that growth that is available for us to have. Right? It's very clear and apparent that retailers are demanding, and we see all growth coming from the digital space. And retailers saying, we want you to have increased digital penetration. So we need to find ways to break down those silos and connect it. So what I like to do in my organization is called purposeful planning. So if we can get ahead of events, seasonal opportunities, we really can align to success, whether it's on retail media or content processes. And that's the things I'm trying to do is how do we get ahead? How do we plan purposefully to get ahead and connect those parts of the business? So these are the things that I'm looking at. Our digital shelf, right? For example, how do we shift into more shopper demand moments? We have these things called demand moments in the organization. We want to shift into how we cater to those demand moments and really go beyond measuring our shelf in a way that's checking the box of content kind of guidelines and adherence to content effectiveness within the organization. And measurement will become more and more of a piece, right? So the digital maturity, the data maturity at Russell Stover is not quite the same as maybe at Mars or Coca-Cola, but I'm going to work with that background and knowledge to integrate it, to understand the ROI, to understand the sales measurement and performance. And we're finding tools and partners to help us do that.
I like the purposeful planning part because from 270 degrees view ahead of us in the digital commerce acceleration, there is trends, there's opportunities, there's always a new hot topic to catch up always. And sometimes it's really hard to focus and purposefully select what area, what tactics you want to implement. And I like a couple of the terms they use over there. Number one, kudos for having a 1P and 3P business on Amazon for a very mature and saturated competitive category like food and beverage / chocolate. I've worked in other chocolate brands in the past. It's very demanding to have 3P. So kudos on that. In addition to those, marketplace and DC, you also mentioned, which means the omnichannel strategy, very seamless, integrated cross-channel strategy. But again, since I know your granularity when it comes to analytics and measurement, I'm sure you're going to find out a couple of new levers and implement it into your organization with the objectives ahead. But between this crowded sandbox environment, which 2 or 3 main trends are you observing, or are you selecting and promoting within the organization that you can play and get with?
Yeah. So I think I think a lot of people are, and I'm selfishly am also following retail media very closely.
Of course.
But it is something actually I've been watching for some time prior, probably really a lot in 2021 when it first started growing and Walmart started maturing its network. That's where I focused more, but I've been seeing it really even as early as 2019 from its infancy, and really based on how I used to help measure or guide measurement within that space within my prior roles. For example, I've seen retail media evolve. So back in 2019, when I was at Coca-Cola, we ran a marketing mix model on Amazon. It was actually modeled out to be on total brand sales, right? So I've been able to see how the ROI of those models may not be always traditional to what we see from other marketing mix models. And that kind of battle of retail media, finding value in the organization and that proof of the value or ROI it can have for a business. So for example, on the Amazon mix model, we ran it right to total brand sales, but we actually didn't see an ROI, right? We saw some lifts, we saw some influences, but we see an ROI. And as you're seeing retail media mature, right, that integration of offsite and online tactics together, you're seeing that continue to blur in an interesting way. And I know we'll talk about more about that and how I think about measurement, but it really is this thing that I'm seeing and following. It's more about how are we seeing how retailers are measuring and really attributing those sales and ROI in a way that's different. It's right now, I think it was not about who's doing what retail media, who's expanding which partnerships, and a lot of that exists today. But it's then how is measurement really going to be owned to meet the objectives of the brand teams, the sales teams, and really finding out what's the true ROI of these platforms.
This is a lot of noise in the background. I agree with you because I think you hit the nail on the head when you mentioned the different objectives for different teams. Because commerce objectives, media objectives, brand objectives, and the attribution across offline and online. That's totally the crux of the conversation. And I see even the leading mainstream agencies or measurement partners in that field still experimenting with combination of different approaches, different methodologies. And let's go again back to 10,000 feet view. How do you see the importance of performance measurement on the retail media in today's CPG landscape? Because from our previous discussions and from some of the publications we shared, I asked your opinion before I published at all. It's a very high gross margin, lucrative industry for retailers, and it's very early in the game for the CPGs. So there's a lot of collaboration opportunity, but I don't know how really both parties are to collaborate and open all the cards on the table. Where do you see the real importance and performance measurement discussion going overall and high level?
I think it's still messy, right? I think every organization I've gone to in the last few years, I think I've seen it be relegated just to e-commerce teams and you just handle it. I've seen it relegated where it's a combination of sales and brand teams fighting or e-commerce teams and brand teams fighting for who owns retail media, but really who owns Amazon, I think is the question that I'm seeing. What I'm trying to do in my current role is that I really do feel like there's an opportunity to bring the marketing and brand teams along, but with the right measurement plan in mind. because there really is truly this blurring of understanding the value overall. So one of the principles I like to adhere to, which I've actually learned from the industry as a whole, is thinking about it from the value really is an infinite loop versus a funnel view. While upper funnel seems to work more as a brand side of view and lower is more of a sales tactic, right? We have to work in the middle of conversion or sales outcomes. And that's interesting, right? But still does not negate like having clear benchmarks across the campaign. And sometimes the media that's included within that campaign from the media network perspective can actually have competing goals or inconsistent benchmarks that need to be there. So a lot of times I've seen them being benchmarks similarly across the board. So whether I'm running a connected TV ad through retail media, or I'm running a display banner on site. And they really can't have the same benchmarks, just like you wouldn't do branded search together, right? That will mitigate and influence the value of your ROAS. So we're seeing similar things where we're trying to bring together tactics that were traditionally maybe always sold as by itself as a channel. So just connected TV as a channel in digital marketing versus combining multiple channels within a channel or within a network in this case. Yet they have different goals and outcomes. The biggest thing I've seen is where omnichannel attribution and value to the offsite tactics can look very, very ideal or good to the retailer. But that's because we don't have the right benchmarks behind it, right? So how do we relook at ROAS? How do we look at incremental ROI? And I think incrementality is actually a big unifying metric to have across the media mix.
This brings me to another very big avenue that we need to explore and own to perform really good job on our duty, which is analytics. Because you mentioned omnichannel attribution, you mentioned incrementality, you mentioned the performance measurement, and of course the transparency and sharing of this data, sharing all this metrics across parties, where retailers are asking more and more to invest on their retail media networks from the brands. But it requires a robust analytics infrastructure and team with the enough understanding of this analytics. How do you implement or how do you build this capability in your team and organization? Or do you have any plans to expand or upgrade the existing analytics capabilities in the team? And I'm sure it's going to play an important role in the strategy, but are you ready from infrastructure point of view and a resource point?
Yep. And so if I was, again, going back to that Amazon example for marketing mix modeling from Coca-Cola, I'm looking at a total brand level. Some of my on-site tactics might fall through the cracks and not be there.
Yeah.
So I truly am looking to make sure that we're understanding by tactic and the retail media plans, what is our use case, what is our benchmark, and putting clear benchmarks beyond them. And truly making sure that we at least over time understand the incrementality of each individual tactic in driving the business. So being clear across the different accounts, this will be only used for brand driving occasions. This will be used mostly for conversion driving in that mix. And the holistic view of the plan is each serving its purpose within that plan is where I'm striving towards. I am hoping to pilot incremental ROI measurement and looking into that organization over 2025, but we are a scrappy brand. So I have to also think about how I lean more into the retailers and guide them with my knowledge of what is a acceptable measurement. But in some cases, my brand goals are simply driving awareness and impressions, right? The ROI sometimes can get lost. So we really have to find that balance. But I also want to stop seeing like attribution to high reach, high impression media, retail media networks being that, oh, you achieved your ROAS goals because why? I had more eyeballs to attribute a sales to. And that's what I keep seeing in these plans. So again, those eyeballs have a different value in my equation.
Actually, this is super important when you mention the granularity and the measurement capability across tactics rather than brand level, because this is where the magic happens, if I may. But this requires, I think, a lot of data analytics capability and also the granularity across the platforms you're measuring campaigns, because sometimes there is no single platform. You can have 360 visibility. You're working with the agency partner, you're getting data from the retailers. This requires a lot of engine power under the hood. But I like the drill down capability from brand to technical level and back to brand. I'll do something similar. Let's drill up to the trend level now. Personally, I'm spending like 2 hours every morning just reading my LinkedIn feed, clicking on the articles on my inbox, and checking some of the favorite people's feed or posts. How do you track existing trends or stay ahead of the consumer trends in our digital commerce world? Give us some tips, give us some recommendations.
Yeah. So I think you and I have similar mindsets when it comes to that. So I'm going to talk about my journey with LinkedIn. I think helps explains my knowledge building and where I'm at today with that.
Using
So-
the letter. I love them using the letter.
Yeah. So like you, right? I have this coffee cup and I look at trends in the morning, but what started really was right around the time of the pandemic. Again, I started reading LinkedIn prior to the pandemic just to understand what was going on in the trend. So I found like people like yourself and others to connect with in the industry. All the podcasts were starting to come up in the industry. But then I started seeing like in the pandemic, like a lot of trends coming to head and people just posting news articles. Oh, look what's happening. But no one really digging into why is it happening or the implication it could have. And that's where I started contributing more of my thoughts on the different articles on LinkedIn in particular. But I didn't do it with the goal of having my own brand or own business. I did it with the goal of connection. And it really drove me to be connected across the industry to continue to learn from other people. I was able to join share groups because of these connections. And so that's really what drove my kind of willing to learning. However, I am a nerd. I am a curious person. So I do get all the news feeds and I read the articles. I look at the major industry trade magazines and to understand what is going on in the business. And then involved over time into me occasionally doing some articles. I've been active on and off with my articles, been given my bandwidth, but the articles are really where I like to peel back the layers. And I've done articles on retail media. I've done an article recently on GovPuff integrating on CPG D2C websites. And I always like to do a lot of multifold research and understand it from different perspectives and think about what that impact could actually be from an activation standpoint. Whether that comes to fruition or not, it really depends on the trend, but it's the implication of what that trend derives.
So you're pretty much like me, always, any given time, you have 25 tabs open on your browsing.
25 tabs open. My free time, enjoyment time is reading industry news. I've had my kids tell me, "Stop working, Mom." I'm like, "I'm not working. This is for me." So
I'm learning. Yeah.
I'm learning, but they think I'm working, right? Because they are tied together, but I'm curious. I want to know more.
Absolutely. So let's bring out our Turkish coffee cups or crystal balls, whichever you may like to call it. And let's look at it.
My keys.
Yeah, let's look ahead. How do you see the current digital commerce landscape evolving in the next few years? And I'm sure you're going to touch upon it, but if you don't, I want you to drill down into the retail media and share some best practices on the ongoing evolution, ongoing buzz route of retail.
I'll touch upon retail media in a bit. But what I think I want to talk about a bit is we talked a little bit about how metaverse was a hype cycle.
Yes. Yep.
So I like to think about trends in a circular 5-year view. So again, everyone's what do you do in the next 5 years? Things circulate back and forth in terms of trends and what they mean and how they come to life. And some of these trends, like unified commerce, is something I talked about that I'm activating within my organization today. But this is a circular trend that I've seen over the last 5 to 6 years, right? It's just the difference between pre and post COVID and the organization in terms of how you cycle through and what that means to be unified. In 2019, it was unification of brand and sales teams together on content, not retail media. It was how do you also unify the sales organization to understand that the shopper and the sales opportunity have value for the organization. A lot of conversation about incrementality 5 years ago, but that conversation comes back again, depending on what the tactic is. So for retail media, we were just talking about incrementality. That's the new incrementality value question. I'm investing here in retail media. So what is that value back to me in this organization? So digital penetration might have been hit, but now we have to get to that other incremental value for the organization. So these cycles come and go into different things. We talked about Web 3.0 and blockchain and AI, right? And these trends exist, but really it's about what we're seeing. It's not really whether it's going to be called Web 3.0 or it's exactly blockchain, but it's about automation, personalization, and truly, I believe, the blurring of social and retail experiences. So I've been watching TikTok shops very closely. Whether they'll exist in the US in a year, who knows? But I think at the end of the day, it's like that trend where social, and they call it social commerce, but I think I want to be careful with that because people just think social media. It's really social shopping. It's just shopping, right? Integrated with those two experiences. And whether TikTok owns that or not, or Amazon finally finds its way to integrate it through technology, probably through AI, that will come and go. Now, of course, retail media is another conversation that we could continue. But retail media, I think you really are going to see that separation of where it's really going to become a brand play versus really an omni-channel play. I do see already like we need to siphon networks based on where it will stay in trade. I know it's not always popular, but I think not every network is going to be a brand play.
I picked up some of the buzzwords in this last answer. I like the circular marketplace nature of the social commerce and this distinct differentiation between social shopping and social commerce. And I totally agree with you. We haven't seen a glimpse of social commerce in the US yet. And it's only about time if we see it or not. We'll see the legal battles going on and the other privacy rights, etc. So it will be a very interesting year to see. I think the social commerce, to your point, will be one of the defining turn points or milestones if it really happens in the Western Europe or US. As we come to the end of the episode, I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much for all the insights. Thank you very much for all the open answers to my curvy, bold questions. And I want to extend a really big thank you for coming up on us as we make the announcement of both the new role of the digital commerce at Russell Stover, Lynn Springreed, and we're supporting the e-commerce together. Thank you very much for coming to our show today, Celia. And thanks for sharing all the insights.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very flattered to be here and wish you best of luck as you venture on the rest of your podcast.
Great. And we'll definitely knock your door one more time on our additional track where the career chronicles are discussed. So there is a lot of different roles being shaped, being defined as we explore new areas of digital commerce. And like yourself, I also kept different type of roles in the sales and the digital marketing, and now we're delving into data and analytics. So I'm sure there will be more people interested to hear our stories and our career chronicle. So I will call you again in the coming weeks. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Stay tuned for more episodes where we continue to explore the latest trends and insights from the leaders of our digital commerce industry. And until next time, stay ahead of the curve. Thank you very much, Celia. See you soon.
Thank you, Mert.